Welcome everybody to the May TV POA Board meeting. I'm John Orr, the president for this year. I'd like to call it to order, and first order of business is always to approve the minutes from our last board meeting. I could get a okay, second.
Second.
Any changes or alterations as they were submitted? Nope.
I need to abstain since I was not here.
All those that were here are in favor of approving? Okay.
I wasn't here either, so I can't vote.
So 5-0. So what we want to do is kick off with our audited financial presentation. We have Todd Harms from Coulter & Justice, our auditing firm, that's going to have a brief presentation. Just want to push the button.
On the right. Green means live, I take it. We're good to go. Thank you for the introduction. With me today is Whitney Cabea. Whitney helps out with the audit. She oversees a lot of the detail testing and that type of thing. So we appreciate her being here. And if there's a really hard question, she'll know the answer. No, but I appreciate the chance to go over the draft financials with you. Want to first, before we start, say thank you to Judy Bedford and Jessica Johnson. We don't get across the finish line of the financial statements without them providing a lot of information to us and us asking a lot of questions. So there's a lot of back and forth, a lot of work on both sides to get that done. So we really appreciate their efforts and thank you for that. We want to also communicate to you, we met with the audit committee on Thursday, May 13th, and went over the draft financial statements, and we'll present those to you here. We'll present the highlights. So kind of two themes are included in these financial statements that you'll see from, that's probably differences from prior years, but if you had a story to establish, there's two things that would stand out. One is there is a water and sewer infrastructure asset fee, so that is new for '24. So you'll see that in different phases in the financials, okay? And the second thing that you'll notice that's different or new for the '24 financials is food service. So the association is running two locations, Yacht Club and Tokwa. Kahiti was always ran, but so there's three restaurants, but the association's running all three now. So you're going to see that food service revenue and for food service expenses that are there. Okay. So that's kind of what to expect when we go over this presentation. Those two things. One is our job is to give an opinion on these financial statements, and the objective of that from the association's perspective is you're looking for a clean opinion. So what you have in front of you with these draft financial statements is a clean opinion, so that's a good thing. Next, just want to point out a couple of highlights, just some fluctuations and different things that are on the financial statements. So if we looked at the consolidated balance sheet, that's on page 3. Couple highlights for you. Utility payments receivable are higher than the previous year, and that's largely due to the water and sewer infrastructure asset fee. Okay. Other things, if we turn the page into the consolidated statement of revenues, expenses, and changes in members' equity, what you'll see there is an increase in the water and sewer services revenue. And then you'll also see an increase for food service revenue. There's a small edit here as well. We changed the name from previously, it was, we called Recreation and Beach. Now we changed the name to Parks and Recreation to fit internal tracking, and that's how it's identified. So we made that change in the financials as well. One thing, let me back up also, is you'll notice if we compare 23 to 24, we went from 58.2 million to 68.5 million. That increase, there's some designated cash and investments that are held for future sewer and repair, water and sewer work, and that's highlighted in footnote number 2, and we'll get to that. Okay. Next, let's call your attention to a couple of the new things. Page 9, we discuss water and sewer services revenue. In particular, the new thing that's there relates to water and sewer infrastructure asset fee. That's the monthly fee of $80 a month. And then we broke out the different components of the water and sewer revenues. So you can see this, like the normal sewer revenues, the warranty reserve, and then the water and sewer asset fee. So you can see the different components there. Okay? Next, you'll see on page 10 where we talk about food service. So we've got revenues associated with food service. And that's new this year, where the association is running those 2 restaurants. Okay. Next, on page 12, we talk about deferred revenues. Each year we've had deferred revenues. It's not necessarily new, but we've added some additional detail in this year's financials so that in previous years, we just had one line item for a lump sum of the deferred revenues, but we've added a footnote in the current year so you can see what are the different components of each one of those items, from membership assessment, golf courses, utilities, food service, parks and rec, and that type of thing. So you can see the different components. All right? Next, on page 14, it talks about designated cash and cash equivalents, and it talks about what are we holding those monies for. So new for '24, you will see some funds held for the water and sewer infrastructure asset fee. So there was $1.3 million deposited there, disbursements of $259K, leaving an ending balance there of $1.1 million. So it just tracks those different components. Okay, let's see if there's anything else to call your attention to. All right, that is the highlights of the financial statements. Does anyone have any questions?
Not from those of us on the audit committee. I don't know if any other board members have questions.
Well, I guess as chair of the audit committee, I can just indicate that the audit committee met twice with Todd and Whitney back in January from a planning standpoint. And then a week ago Tuesday on May 13th, we met and reviewed a draft of the audited financials, provided feedback. There were subsequently some primarily footnote related adjustments made. But from the audit committee standpoint, we unanimously recommend to the board approval of acceptance of these audited financial statements ending December 31, 2024.
Okay. Now, is that a motion or?
So I will make a motion that the board accept the audited financial statements as presented for the period ended December 31st, 2024. And what I will add for the community's benefit is that these will be posted to the website within the next week so that they will be available for all residents to see, similar to what has been done in previous years.
I second.
Any other comment?
Yes. Good afternoon. My name is Joel Reed. I'm sorry, my computer died. I didn't have the document to look at, so I couldn't follow along, probably like all the residents. So I saw that the cash, and I forget which page it was on, showed that we grew from 23 to 25 by over 10 million. Is that correct?
Yes, so let's, the details of that, let's just, really you're talking about designated cash and cash equivalents, right?
Yes, so
It's
it was-
the designated piece of that.
It went from four?
Went from, there's kind of two components of the designated cash. There's designated cash and designated investments. They're kind of the same thing. It's just based on what they
Right.
hold. So footnote number 2 will detail what exactly makes up that. So if you go to footnote number 2, let me see what page that is. Page 14. And that will break out for you what are the components of that. So largely water and sewer reserves. So last year, major capital and major maintenance reserve was $18 million, okay? And that grew to $27 million at the end of '24. And then you also have a reserve for the water and sewer infrastructure asset fee of $1.1 million. So that's where your major components are held there.
All right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Anything else?
I think we just have to, the board
Right.
has to vote to accept,
Right.
yeah, sorry.
I'm just seeing if anybody had any questions. Without any, I guess all those in favor of accepting the audited financials as submitted?
And I'm going to abstain from vote. I don't understand this. I didn't have it very long, and I certainly like to understand it better, so I'm going to abstain from voting.
Okay. With that, I guess I will thank you for, we got it done earlier this year, no delays, so
Yes.
appreciate it.
We're happy to be back on track.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you for all your help, Todd, and the staff as well,
Yeah.
and Whitney as well.
Thank you both.
So as we said, those will be posted as soon as possible. Again, we appreciate all the work from our accounting staff, and it was, as stated, a clean financial audit, no issues noted at all, so that's always good. It's always the objective. As far as just any opening comment, along the similar line that Todd was talking about with some of our reserves, the board has instructed Judy to break back out water and sewer reserves from the general reserve fund. So as everybody knows, back in the end of '22, the decision was made to consolidate what was, I think there was 4 or 5 separate reserve accounts that money was arbitrarily put in there. There was no real science to it. And it didn't make sense to have all these little accounts without a plan for how you fund those accounts. It was, like I said, just completely arbitrary how they got funded. So I think it was the right thing to do, but now that we've got so much focus on water and sewer, we thought it made sense, since that's one of the biggest assets we have in the village, to have a separate reserve on our balance sheet to identify the reserves that are generated by basically the utility division. And so Judy has gone back to '22 and done a roll forward from that point. And we now show, as of the end of last month, roughly $7.2 million in that water and sewer reserve account. And she will, again, as early as they can make it happen, break it out on our balance sheet, so in monthly financial presentations, you'll see it separate. And basically, all the net cash flow from the water and sewer division will flow into that reserve account. So, there's a certain profit that's generated on the sale of water and sewer services. You subtract from that net profit the capital investment associated with water and sewer, because every year we have capital investments that are made in the utilities. And the net cash flow then from those divisions would then flow directly into the reserve. So I think it provides a little better visibility for residents to see where those cash flows from water and sewer are going. And that will be directly spent on water and sewer improvements. As we stated last year, our goal was to have $7 million of reserves going towards, tap projects, whatever they may be when all is said and done. And we're at that point now where we have $7 million directly attributable to water and sewer cash flow. So just wanted to make that statement at the opening here, and that's really all I had to update everybody on, other than that we've stayed busy again this month. Lots of balls in the air, lots of projects, and you're going to hear about a few of them today. So I guess at this point, we will do the open forum section. We'll again ask folks to comply with our guidelines. I don't know if, Karen, you have those to put up there or not, but, we ask for a maximum of 3-minute discussion, because as you can see, there's a long line forming, so please state your name and turn the mic on too, and have at it.
It's green, so I'm live. My name is Karen Egan, and I live in Milagua, and I actually do enjoy reading the telegrams, and I do enjoy reading the highlights from all the various advisory committees. The question I have goes back to the advisory committee, the PSAC committee, back in May 5th. They sent out their highlights, and they indicated 3 items that they thought should be funded. They were signage, they were, asphalt things, and there was also additional monies to be put forward towards Jacob for some additional tasks with regards to the elevated tank. The other day, I read the Financial Affairs Committee report, and the amount of money that was designated for the Jacob study was set at $26,000. When I read the Financial Advisory Committee meeting minutes, highlights, the tick for tack for the signage and for the asphalt matched up. They were perfect matches. However, the Jacobs amount of money, the request is now bloated to $40,000. I'm just trying to understand what happened between the PSAC committee and the Financial Affairs Committee. That's my question.
I'm happy to answer that. I'm Matt. I'm the director. Okay, sorry. At the PSAC meeting, I came forward with a scope of services that was intended for Jacobs to perform related to the elevated water storage tank. I'm going to say towards the conclusion of the meeting, it was inquired, hey, we have other questions, there's other things to consider, and that should be covered in that scope of services. I agreed, I acquiesced. My feeling is on that project, we might as well get all the questions out, get them answered once and for good. It's time to move forward with that project, or not, but continually asking questions probably does not serve anyone's best interest. So between the PSAC meeting and the FAC meeting, I conferred with my 2 board liaisons to PSAC, who is Mike Lackey and Mike Braddock. We kind of talked about the issue of how do we reconcile, we had this scope, there's a desire for more information. We picked, I would say, to some degree randomly, the topic of, or the number of $40,000. Until the board approves the scope, the amount is not known. Okay, so that task order has to get approved today. At such time that we are clear on all of the questions and all of the things that need to be answered and what exactly Jacobs is being asked to deliver, that amount will become more clear. But in any case, it is a time and materials type contract. They will spend the time that is needed to deliver it. Could be less than 26,000, could be up close to 40,000. As I sit here today, my feeling is I've got a recommendation from PSAC. I have a recommendation from the Finance Advisory Committee. I need board approval. Then we will tighten up the scope, and at some point it will be delivered. But as it stands, it's an amount not to exceed, and it's a result of questions that were asked at PSAC that occurred after the funding request was filled out.
So that means it's not to exceed 40,000?
Yes.
But technically, it could exceed 40,000.
I suppose that's a possibility. I consider that likelihood low.
Okay, hold you to it.
Okay.
Testing 1, 2. Okay, my name is Dick Henry, and I've been the organizer and facilitator, if you will, to try to get a fire station in Kahidi. I'd like to have a little demonstration too while I'm here. Oops. I guess maybe I won't. Sorry about that. Anyhow, as you know, Kahidi's fire protection is provided by the Hopewell Volunteer Fire Department located in Madisonville. Our fire chief has been trying to get a fire station in Kahidi for the last several years, meeting with Winston Blazer, Chet Pillsbury, and nothing ever came of their commitments. We in Kahidi believe we should have our own fire station to reduce the response times for fire and ambulance calls. For a fire, it can take anywhere from 15 to 20 minutes or longer, depending on the availability of the firemen, the majority of whom work and live throughout Monroe County, to reach the Hopewell station and get to Kahidi with necessary equipment. Additionally, some of the Hopewell equipment is garaged in Notchie Creek and Sweetwater, which adds significant time to the response times. I've sent letters to each of the board members asking for you to help us donate by donating an acre of land within the 8 acres the POA owns next to the entrance to Kahidi. I've not received any responses. My most recent letter of April 13th provides a lot of information and explains our situation. In talking to Ed Grolemon and Beth, we've been told that you're totally aware of our need and you're working toward providing this land to us by having a land study done. We're concerned, however, that you may not understand our situation and that might be delaying the project. In the POA board meeting of April 16th, at the beginning of the meeting, John reviewed current projects and said the Kahidi residents have requested that the board work out something to try to get better fire and emergency coverage for Kahidi. But it's very complex because we're dealing with 3 separate entities. I'd like to take this opportunity to clarify what we are doing because it is not as complex as the board seems to think. There's only one entity involved, and that is Hopewell Fire Department. And we're simply trying to add a fire station in Kahidi where we already have approval from Monroe County to place an ambulance once we have the building. Kahidi has been without its own fire station for 23 years. And fortunately, we have not had a structural fire in all that time. But as our chief always says, it's not a matter of if, but when we will have a fire and we need to be ready for it. We have an annual golf tournament in Kahidi that helps to support Hopewell. We know we will need to raise funds for the new fire station. We could be doing that right now, except that we have no land or donors or grantors to see. People have died in fires. This is an urgent situation and we need to get the land as soon as possible. We're prepared to have it cleared for designing and building a station on it immediately. Once we get it, we will provide signage and show our residents it's going to be a reality. Then we feel certain we will be able to raise the funds and enlist the volunteers we need to get it going. The main village has received all the attention when it comes to fire protection. As a matter of fact, there are serious discrepancies and inequities in the POA funding and paying expenses between Kahidi, the Tellico Fire Department, and Hopewell. I urge the board to look at these with Judy at your earliest convenience and rectify the situation. History has it that the land was donated, as was the building and the first fire truck, to the Tellico Village Volunteer Fire Department, all by Cooper, when he built the infrastructure for Tellico Village. He believed it was a necessity for the planned community. However, nothing was done for Kahidi when it was developed later. It is beyond time Kahidi has more timely internal fire protection for its over 600 homes. We'll appreciate anything you guys can do to expedite the donation of the land. Just think how each of you would feel if your fire department was several miles away and some of the equipment was even farther away, no matter how great and committed all the firemen are. Please do whatever you can to speed up the process to donate the land to the Hopewell Fire Department. Thank you.
I just want to make one clarification. Our governing documents do not allow for us to make a donation of real property to an unaffiliated entity. So we can't legally donate the property. And it was never donated to the village fire department either.
It was given to them.
No, it's a multi-function building, has other people in the building, and they have a service agreement with Telco Village to provide a service. But they do not own the building. They're not the only tenant in the building, if you call it a tenant. So that, we have to figure out another structural way to accommodate a firehouse. Besides, like I said, we physically cannot donate land.
Can you sell it for $1?
We could, but I think some of the concerns that have been raised by some Kahidi residents too is, where's the plan to build it? I mean, estimates so far have come in, somewhere in the $600,000-700,000 to $1 million to build a structure, build the approach roads, bring the utilities in. I mean, it's not a small project.
I don't know where you got that estimate. We haven't had an estimate yet.
That was,
The only estimate we have is out of the clouds, and that was like $200,000 to $300,000. And I can't imagine why you can't assume that we need a fire hall in Kahidi. I mean, you guys wouldn't live without a fire hall in your community. Something has to be done.
right, well,
and-
we're waiting for a plan. I mean, Ed, you got
Yeah,
information?
we've had several meetings, this topic's been several meetings the last several weeks. Matt, John and I met with the Telco Village Fire Chief to see what questions we need to ask and what concerns we should have about a firehouse. I personally read over 500 pages of FEMA documentations, Tennessee documentation on firehouses, and there's a FEMA thing on entrance and exit roads on fire stations that they have to comply to. So we put together about 24 questions, and Matt and I are going to try to schedule a meeting with Zach next week to have a discussion with this and get these questions answered. One of the things, a couple of items is water and sewer. We have 1 6-inch water line coming into Kahidi. Is that enough? Do they have to run a separate line, which will make your costs go up? Do you have to have a separate sewer line? Because when you rinse off these uniforms, there's some hazardous materials that could be on them. You have a special washer for those.
Yeah.
Did that require a separate sewer line?
We're aware of that.
These are some of the questions we have that are going to affect your cost and our infrastructure. Roads, the entrances, for the specialty, looking at some of these emergency entrances that we have to have. Are we going to have to widen the thing to Kahidi Trail or to widen the entrance to where it's going to come down from the hill? Beth has completed a land plan for layout for us, so we have been working on this. But it's going to take time, and we're doing our due diligence, making sure that what costs are right. It was also indicated to us that Loudoun County had just built a new fire station, and that cost them almost $800,000. So that, if that's a model, then we want to know about financing for that and things like that, how that's going to be raised. But those are some of the questions we're going to talk to Zach about. We are working on this. We're taking it very seriously. It was a topic this morning in the executive session, and we will be moving forward with what we can. That's where the legal definition came out this morning with part of our attorneys. We cannot donate the land. We can sell it, we can lease it, but we cannot donate the land.
Okay.
So, okay?
Yeah, the one thing that John did mention, though, was you're looking for plans and so forth. It's very difficult to get plans when you have no land on what you're going to build. I mean, once you get the land and it's surveyed and you have a certain amount of space, then you can look at what you're going to put in that space. But to develop plans before we even have the land, it's kind of ridiculous. We can't do that.
Beth
So-
showed us a layout of that land, 8 acres, where it would potentially be to this morning. So we've got that potential, and, but once we get our questions asked, we can then move forward with other things. The board, if the board chooses to move forward with it, we can then move forward. But we are working on it and making steps forward. But we
Okay.
have a various process that we have to go through to make sure it happens.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thanks for providing this time. My name is Michael Click. My wife and I live in Kahidi on Hewanihi Trail, and I am one of the resident Hopewell volunteer firefighters. I'm also one of their officers, and I sit on their board of directors. I've been trained with Tellico Village Fire. I'm now a certified, Tennessee certified interior structural firefighter. And I come with a concern. I had a whole different approach. Dick mentioned, and you folks mentioned, several of the things that I was going to bring forward today. But what I can provide is the background from the firefighter standpoint. And that is concerning to us as firefighters. What we're seeing is a difference in the behavior of structural house fires today, mostly because of what we're building them from and what we're furnishing them with. And that is petroleum-based, mostly plastics. The fires no longer get to 500 degrees because we're not using paper and wood like we were before. We're using petroleum. The fires that we go into, and I'm there, are 1,700 degrees. Our masks melt at 500 degrees. And the toxic fumes that come off are much worse than they were with paper and wood. And the spread is incredible, the rate at which the fires spread. A flashover, which means that if this room had a fire in it, everything in it would ignite into flames in less than 5 minutes. That's a flashover. Everything is burning, and that's what we're seeing. So with that being said, proximity is important to all of us firefighters. We need to respond in a faster way than we were before. When you had a smoke detector go off in a house, you typically, when we were building with paper and wood, had 13 minutes to clear the house and safely. Now it's down typically to 3 minutes, not just because of the fire, but because of the heat and the toxic smoke. So every second counts. And when we come from a volunteer service in Madisonville, hoping to have a truck in Kahidi with firefighters on board, dressed and ready to attack a fire, every second of that counts. And our properties and the people in there are a concern to me. I also help with EMR, the medical calls. I am in these houses, and a lot of them are single, widowed, older ladies. And I'm worried that they can get out and we can get to them in time. So again, I understand the station. I'm looking, though, as a firefighter, for the equitable level of protection that the main village has. They do a wonderful job. I trained with them. I train with them every week, or just about every week. They do an outstanding job. That's what I would like to see for Kahidi, too. We're residents. We pay the same dues. I feel, as a firefighter and a resident, that we should enjoy the same level of protection that the main village does. Okay? And I'll leave that with you. I understand you're working towards that. I'm glad to hear that. I didn't know that, but I'd like to see that continue before there's a problem. And I'd like to head that problem off before we have it. So thank you again for the time. I appreciate it.
Yeah, Alex.
Hi, I'm Jane Henry, and I live at 237 Galonby Trail in Kahidi. I am also a member of the ad hoc committee seeking a better fire and emergency service in Kahidi. It's my privilege and honor to represent 301 Kahidi households who have signed a petition seeking your help in equipping Kahidi with a fire and rescue service consistent with that which is provided in the main village. I first do want to thank you, though, for the service that you give to us all. I know just with this endeavor for my husband and myself, it does take a toll on your personal life and your personal time, and I thank you for all that you give to us. But at the same time, I'm going to ask you to spend even more time on this initiative, as it is part of your extremely important responsibility to provide for our public safety. I'm going to read just a part of the petition, because if I read the whole thing, I'll go over my 3 minutes, but let me read part of what everybody signed. Currently, emergency response is coordinated through Hopewell Volunteer Fire Department's primary station in Madisonville, Tennessee. Due to the geographic distance and the volunteer nature of staffing, response times can be delayed, even though a small fire engine is housed in Kahiti's maintenance facility. While this is a valued resource, it is not sufficient to manage larger incidents or sustained firefighting operations. Establishing a fire and rescue station in Kahiti will allow first responders to stage appropriate equipment and resources directly within our neighborhood. This will reduce response times, enhance public safety, and strengthen support for the dedicated firefighters and emergency medical responders already serving the area. Monroe County Mayor... Oh, Mike's got to go. Monroe County Mayor Mitch Ingram has authorized the housing of an ambulance in the future Hopewell Kahiti Fire and Rescue Station, which will further bolster emergency medical response efforts within our community. And that is so important. I mean, that golden hour to get that ambulance that close to Kahiti would be great. By signing this petition, we affirm the following. A fire rescue station within Kahiti is essential for the safety and well-being of all residents. Shorter response times can save lives, reduce property loss, and build a more resilient community. We strongly support the allocation of land, funding, and resources for the timely construction of this facility. So specifically, we are asking you to move more quickly than you have been in finalizing the land plan to allocate at least 1 acre of land across from the Kahiti Guard Shack, then follow quickly to get the land surveyed and provided to the Hopewell Fire Department. Those actions on your part would enable us to move forward in seeking grants and executing funding initiatives. Since this is a public safety issue, time certainly is of the essence. So, John, I can leave you with the 301 original signed petitions, or I can give you a summary by address and last name, or I could give you both. Which would you prefer?
Well, the summary, obviously, but I guess I'm curious why it's only 300. You got 843 properties, only 300 signed the petition?
There's only 600 households. There's only 600
As far
households
as
there.
dues paying lots, there's 843 that pay dues.
We didn't give petitions to those people, just to the households who were there, who live there, and are subject to
So
the,
600 and some.
yeah.
almost
So we got
650.
301. And there's a lot of passion around it, I have to say. I mean, there was one lady that missed her due date, and she called us and said, I was in the hospital, I couldn't sign my petition and get it in, could you please come pick it up for me? So we do care. There is a lot of passion
yeah.
in this
I'm
box.
sure there is, yeah. I guess, like I said, we've had a lot of meetings in the last 2 months on this. We've got more coming up this week.
It's music to my ears.
So there's work being done. We've just reviewed the land plan this morning.
That's great.
So it's moving.
you know
Maybe not
where-
as fast as you would like, but it's moving. Maybe faster than it has the last 5-10 years, but it is being worked on.
I appreciate that. Whatever you can do, we all appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Good afternoon. My name is Scott Duncan. I live as far away from Kahiti as you can possibly get. So Beth, you can put a name and a face together. I live at 208 Coyote View at the far north end. What I want to talk about today is parcel P38. First, I want to express my thanks to the board for their willingness to be our representatives in the governance of Telego Village. And public service is challenging, and I understand you can't possibly keep everybody happy. Been there and know that to be true. My message involves transparency of the board activities regarding POA-owned properties, including P38. I've been communicating with Beth Kaburka on the IT support site, which, by the way, works well. Her responses have been prompt, but it has not been easy to put together a full picture of what has happened and what is going on P38. I tried to piece together the story of how did the board value the property? How was the property marketed? How and when did the board change the intended use from residential, as noted in the April 2023 long-range plan, to commercial? What's the status of the current confidential contract? What is the timing for homeowner input, if any? Or is this a done deal as soon as the contractor says, hey, I'm ready to sign it, and we get to see it after the fact? And I've been looking for the preferred usage that the board had for this property. Beth has promised to give us all this information in the next town hall meeting. I'm not looking for answers today, just want to get kind of on the record. Regarding the confidential nature of this contract, I acknowledge that the board has the right to keep selected strategic and sensitive information confidential. The board is not obligated to keep the intended use of the POA property confidential. I submit that transparency and full disclosure to the homeowners that are financially responsible for Tellico Village is more important than the sale of the property. Secrets lead to speculation and mistrust. More fodder for next door, and we really, really don't need that. We've got enough of that stuff. The board could simply tell the potential buyer that communication with the homeowners is their duty as elected representatives, and if confidentiality is required, find another buyer that invites homeowner support. The board should use the ability to withhold information from us to the absolute minimum. Save it for legal matters. My goal is that the full story of how we got to the current status of P38 become a template for future communications with the homeowners regarding the sale of the POA property. Full transparency and no surprises. I've got 5 seconds. Finally, regarding the proposed storage facility near Maple Hill Road, as I read the Red Book, which is referenced on P38, Section D, aesthetic design of buildings, it requires the storage facility to look like the residential housing that is in close proximity to the property. Has the ACC given this guidance to the property owners? I urge the board and our attorney to be involved in this matter rather than wait for the appeal process. Thank you for your service on behalf of the Tellico Village homeowners, and as I mentioned, I'm not looking for a response now. Beth has promised to get this to us in the next board meeting. Thank you.
Are these your notes?
No, those are not my notes.
Hi, my name is Pam Click. I'm a Kahidi resident and have lived there for the past 3 years. I am not coming on behalf of advocating for a fire station in our neighborhood. I'm coming from a different perspective here that I would just appreciate your time in listening to. My husband was, Mike, was up here 2 people ago talking, and Mike is not aware of this conversation that I'm going to have with you now, but I feel it's important to share my perspective as Mike's wife with him being a volunteer firefighter. Mike served in the Marine Corps for 2 years, and he was a fighter pilot with the Navy. He loves danger, he loves excitement, and he loves learning new things and the challenges of new things. With that being said, what I have learned from Mike joining the fire department as a volunteer, and I did not want him to join the fire department. It started as Mike learning how to drive the fire truck in Kahidi, to be one of the first responders to get things set up for the volunteers that would come into Kahidi. Since then, as you've learned, he's gone through the fire training and is a structural trained firefighter. I come to you today because Kahidi residents working or volunteering with the fire department do not have the financial resources that they deserve and that they need. Our $80 that is given for the fire department is the same $80 that the residents in the village give. And our firefighters are not given the equipment and the due diligence that they need. Mike has been in fires where the mask hasn't fit properly because he has borrowed a used mask and other equipment because they haven't had the money to pay for things. We've paid for fire boots that were under $400 for Mike to wear so that his feet were protected in a fire because there wasn't money available to provide the proper clothing as a volunteer firefighter. Now, since I've known this, I've also learned that one of the POA line items for maintenance, and I want to read this because I want to make sure that I'm getting it correct so that I'm doing due diligence to all of this. The POA budget for the Hopewell Fire Department has a heading of maintenance expenses. And if you were to go back, one of the line items on there for the Hopewell Fire Department went for replacement of the carpeting of our unmanned guard shack. The carpeting for the unmanned guard shack in Kahidi, the bill for that was sent to the Hopewell Fire Department. I'm coming to you as a resident again, not to implore and ask for the fire department to be located in Kahidi, but we do need closer in proximity services that are available to our firefighters. We also need funds allocated to the volunteer firemen. Thank you so much.
Hi, Levon Mitchell. I'm an HOA board member, but I'm here today as a Kahidi resident. So according to NFPA Standard 1710, which is the standard created by the National Fire Protection Association, real processing time should be 64 seconds, 95% of the time. As far as turnaround time, firefighters should be suited in their apparatus within 80 seconds for fire response. Travel time, first responders should arrive on the scene within 240 seconds. That's 44 minutes for fire suppression and EMS incidents 90% of the time. The good news is that Tellico Village Volunteer Fire Department effectively meets these metrics with a fire station and facilities within the main village. Unfortunately, due to the proximity of the fire station and available services in Kahidi, response time averages 18 minutes. Emergency services, which is 80% of the calls we receive, have seen response times of up to 45 minutes. When I moved to Kahidi, I do not recall being informed that there was a disparity between the fire protection we in Monroe County would receive versus the fire protection in the main village. Kahidi residents expect and should expect equal services. I was also surprised when I heard that Kahidi residents working with Hopewell Fire Department are coming up with a solution to this problem. I am unsure why residents of Kahidi should be trying to resolve the issue themselves, and I would humbly request that the POA perform the duties that we would expect from them. On another note, I submitted a help spot April 15th asking for an explanation of the distribution of funds for emergency services. My understanding is that there's a small portion of the monthly dues that are allocated for emergency services, about $250. of our POA dues, which for Kahidi would mean about $16,000 a year. My understanding also is that this money goes to Tellico Village Volunteer Fire Department, although we are not serviced in Kahidi with them. Kahidi EMRs are funded for their needs. However, no one seems to know where the excess funds go at the end of the year. To me, it would make sense that this small amount that's collected for Kahidi would go to the fire department that services Kahidi. Ticket was closed until they received more information, and it's been over a month. So I would be interested if there is more information.
One question on that. In our research on this, we discovered we have a contract with the Tellico Village Fire Department. We do not with Hopewell. So we pay them per that contract for services. So that's one of the discussions I'm going to have with Zach this week, is if we can get a contract together, maybe and we can then allocate some of that money to the Hopewell Fire Department. But we have no contract with them and no really legal agreement with the fire department. And based on our CNRs, we can't give in money to anybody that we don't even, that aren't getting the services for or something like that. It has to be a physical contract.
I think the bottom line here is we have a disparity in the services. That's obvious. And my concern is, why are residents having to come up with a solution? I would think that this would be a basic service that everybody who is a resident in Tellico Village should expect.
Leva, could you send me those stats so
Absolutely.
I could share with the board?
I will.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
Well, one of the things the receipts we're all doing, we're also looking at the response time in the main village and Kahidi and with the national staffers. There's a document out there called Tellico for Tennessee CTSA document that breaks down average response times across Tennessee based on nonprofit, rural, volunteer fire departments. And it tells what the average response times are. And it also does it basically by more detailed on size of the fire departments and all that, what you can expect. So I'm putting together some numbers on that and seeing, and one of the things we're going to ask Zach is response times, list of response times, so to see where we're at compared to what the norm should be.
And we do have those.
And that's one with
And
some of the
Tellico Village
information we're looking
Volunteer
for.
Department has
And we're also
theirs.
getting that, we're asking that for the Tellico Village Fire Department too, so we can have comparisons.
Hello, my name's Lynn Lawrence. I also live in Kahidi. I want to just inform you of an example of the disparity of the response time from a medical standpoint. Spoke to my neighbor this morning. She had to call 911. Her husband had lost consciousness last Monday. It took 30 minutes for any kind of response at all. Apparently, none of our volunteer EMRs were available. So we just have to be aware that a lot of our services are volunteer. And to me, this is something that could be resolved without having to talk about a large building of a firehouse. I just think we need to address the disparity between response time. It's my understanding if that medical issue would have happened in the main village, the response time would have been between 3 and 5 minutes. She waited 30 minutes for a response. Thank you.
Afternoon. My name's Mark Warner. I'm not here to talk about Kahidi Fire, but I think it's very, very important that you do something. It sounds like you got a real problem in your hands. I am here to talk about some water issues, so they're kind of related to fire. I got a question to ask the board, and specifically I want to ask Marty the question. Since I supported Marty when he was first ran for the office here, he called me and asked me for my support, so I said, okay, I'll give you my support. I don't know Marty from business. I only know Marty from my church. And I consider Marty to be a man of integrity, an honest man, and a man of high character. Having said that, I'd like to talk a little bit about what's happened with our TAP program. It seems that the TAP program, as we go down the road, is being dismantled one piece at a time. We no longer have the waste tank sitting on 444th. That's gone. That's about $8 million. And chances are we're not going to have an elevated water tank in Kahidi either, because we got another solution for that. And there's a few other bonus pieces in there that probably won't happen. So that's going to be another $10 million. And that's as of Scott over there, Scott McCrae, who said that in the town hall last week. I believe he said it was a $10 million program he had over there. So when you add all that up, you're looking at about $20 million taken out of the TAP program, which was originally $36 million, which grew to $37 million in about a 6-month period. So we're looking at about $16 million left in the program, and we're not even halfway through looking at what Jacobs is going to bring back when they fix the mess that they put together to begin with. A lot of errors in their report. So here we sit. We don't know where this TAP program is going to go. We know it's being dismantled as we see it. It's losing funding because we don't have to spend the money. And as a friend of mine said one time back in July, I voted no for this because it was a spitball estimate. You remember that, John? It was a spitball estimate. Everything that John said is in fact in play today. Nothing's changed. It's a spitball estimate. We don't know where it's going. Yet we are still collecting $80 from people. I hear all the time from people, mostly widowers, calling me, sending me emails, telling me that this is really a burden for them. I've spoken to my housekeeper who said, yeah, this takes a lot out. It's only $80, but it's tough. So I'm asking you, Marty, based on everything we know, where this program is going, what we don't know, which is what we're going to have in the program, if you were to vote today for the $80, what would your vote be?
So Mark, since you picked on me specifically, actually a lot of the things that you just mentioned are not correct. There has been no decision made on the wastewater tank. The decision that's been made is that if we need one, we will not put it at where the current pump station is. So that's as far as that discussion has gone. There has been no discussion saying we do not need it. Now, we all hope we don't need it, of course, because that'd be a savings. We don't know that yet, right? So until we get some information back on the metering, what's happening as we put these extensions on individual tanks, we don't know any more than what we did before. So that's one. You also mentioned the elevated water tank. That has not been decided either yet. Again, we hope that we don't need it, but until that's resolved, it's still in play. So a lot of the things that you mentioned where these costs are going away, none of that has happened yet. So if it does happen, certainly that will be taken into consideration, and the Finance Committee will look at that and say, okay, do we need to continue with the water and sewer infrastructure asset fee?
Well, it's
kind of that simple.
That's even worse. That's even worse than I thought, because you have no idea what's in the program then. You don't know whether it...
Actually, we do. That's our program until it's changed.
No, it isn't.
In
You
fact,
don't
what
know
we
if the
have
waste
done-
tank's going to happen. You just said that. You
If you
don't
wanna-
know if the
I'm not gonna
elevated
sit here
tank's
and
going to
argue with
happen.
you.
You said that.
I'm not
So
gonna
we have
argue
no
with you.
idea what's in this program. So
you're
without knowing
putting-
what's in the
You're
program,
putting words in my mouth, and you don't like it when I put words in your mouth. So the bottom line is, it's all being looked at. We've got a pretty sound team here, whether you want to admit it or not, that is looking at this stuff and trying to be very responsible for all homeowners. We've done that from the start. We've listened to you time and time and time again, badger us and vilify us, and it's unfortunate that you feel like you have to do that, because
know.
we are putting in all of our time trying to be sure that we're doing the right thing for all residents and not operating on emotion. So I don't know what more I can say. We're continuing to look at that. We're asking the Finance Committee to review it sooner than budget time, and John said that before. So I'm not sure what more we can be doing until we know for sure if we can change course. What we are doing is we are upgrading the pump station at Tokwa. We know we need to do that. And Kahidi. So we're starting with those things because we want to capture the money that we're hopefully can get as a grant from the state. So we're stepping through it. You want to keep badgering us about the $80? At the time that decision was made, it was the right decision, and we're continuing to look at it. The scope has not changed yet. So
Thank
I
you.
don't know
I
what more I can say
appreciate
to
it.
that.
I appreciate your input, but that's worse than what I thought, because we'd have no clue what's in the TAP program then. You don't have a clue.
you have no clue, apparently.
No, you don't have a
you're not
clue because you
listening.
don't know about it.
And I'm not going to
You-
debate it with you.
Not made,
Thank you.
not made a decision. So, thank you.
Hi, I'm Gary Zika, Chota Hills, here in Tellico Village proper. I've got a couple of comments, one on the water and one on the sewer, which is not a surprise considering my background. My first comments are related to an agenda item on capital request, and that's to issue a task order to Jacobs Engineering to answer questions in regard to the proposed elevated water tank. First, I'd like to thank the POA and the board for the positive action from my comments from the last board meeting, and that is in placing the design package proposed elevated water tank on hold. That tells me you've put it on hold, not spending any more money with Jacobs.
Right. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I didn't say that we weren't doing it. I didn't say that we were doing it.
I understand it.
Right.
Just trying to do the right thing, and that's what I'm trying to make sure I'm giving you guys the information that you need. The capital request, as I understand it, is to have Jacobs answer some of the questions that I've repeatedly been bringing up to the POA and board members over the last year. As stated by Mr. Reed at the last board meeting, the relationship of Jacobs and the POA has not been positive or productive for the POA. Jacobs' report is over 3 years old and is composed of data collected over 4 years ago. Yes, Jacobs did produce a piping and water flow model, and that was pointed out by last board meeting by Mr. Braddock. This data and the data and the model that is generated is owned by the POA, and we have paid Jacobs to gather and present this information to us. Any engineer could still use that same data that Jacobs has collected. The model can be given to any engineer. I believe it is the time to end the relationship with Jacobs and to obtain a new engineering consultant to review and update the model, answer the questions, and make honest recommendations to the POA in regards to our water supply system. My request is the capital request be revised and approved for another engineering consultant, not Jacobs. Secondly, we know that our water supply system has not been designed for home irrigation systems. Tellico Village is not alone in this problem. It's throughout the whole United States. Presently, the TVA is on an odd and even water cycle for homes that obtain irrigation water from the POA. The only way to avoid the low volume pressure is to restrict irrigations to off-peak demand times. The peak demand times are the morning hours when residents wake up and start using showers, sinks, and toilets. I'm requesting that the board pass a resolution that no automatic irrigation from the POA water supply system from 5 a.m. to 11 a.m. I've been to PSAC meetings, and they'll say, oh, the board hasn't done that, and I've heard it from you guys. It's time to step up and say we need to add the odd and even. I never saw the odd and even show up on a board meeting, so I'm still confused on why you can't do the next step. We must also continue to work with LUB and tasks on the supply side to Tellico Village and to remove the bottlenecks at the main meter locations. All as outlined in TAP 2.0 that Mike and Joe ran on. The second main item is the sewers. My comments are related to the upcoming board meeting agenda under capital request to issue a contract to a low bidder for bids that are due on May 29th for the new main lift station. The reasons I'm bringing this up at this point in time is the issues in the plans and specifications that Jacobs has provided to the contractors to base their bids on. First, I want to point out, does the board or the PSAC or the POA aware that the specifications under summary of work states the completed work will provide the owner with a new main wastewater pump station and a wet weather storage facility? And that wet weather storage facility is the tank and is in Tellico Village. And as Marty just said, hey, it hasn't been eliminated yet. That's because the way they've designed this main lift station, you have to have a wastewater storage tank. It's not an option. As I previously stated, the design package has been produced is based on a wastewater system with 3 components: the new lift station, a second lift station to pump to a storage tank, and a wet weather sewer storage tank. Try to read that faster. What Jacobs has done is simply grade out the items that the contractor is not to include in his bid. The design is based on a wastewater storage tank in Tellico Village. And Marty, you're saying it may not be down there, but it's still going to be in Tellico Village someplace. A new professional engineer would not design a lift station as Jacobs has done for Tellico Village with all the known facts related to the I&I. Another item on these drawings, the second item, Jacobs has combined the north and south village 8-inch sewer lines that presently go into the lift station into one 8-inch line into the lift station. What this does is increase the pressure needed by the 4 neighborhood lift stations in parts of the village that flow directly into the main lift station. I know, Matt, you always got concerns when it does rain and you've got inflow, pressures start to build up and whether you're actually pumping any more liquids into those force mains. This only makes that problem worse for the whole village, from all the lift stations south and north. A third item, Jacobs' design has not included the bypass pumping configuration that all the existing lift stations presently have. Presently, the POA's Public Works can open and shut valves and install a portable pump to bypass the lift stations for maintenance and/or equipment failures. This is a downgrade of the existing system. Another item, Jacobs' design has all 3 pumps connected to an 8-inch line that does not increase to a 12-inch line to LUB until nearly out of the new lift station. The normal flow for an 8-inch line is 780 gallons per minute. The new pumps at Jacobs is spec'd out 750 gallons a minute. And everybody says, well, that should be good. Problem is you have to have 2 running in order to get the 1,500 gallons per minute. You're not going to get it with an only 8-inch line. The recommended velocities in those lines are now twice of what is recommended. Jacobs did increase these pump sizes in the revisions that they did, but they didn't increase the pipe sizes. Another just blatant error in these drawings. I could go on and on about the issues with the design packages out to bid, but I just can't do it in 3 minutes and I'm already over. I've informed the POA about these issues and others in the past and have been informed that Jacobs will revise and correct the issues. They have not. It's blatant. My request that the bid package be placed on hold for the following reasons. These issues that I just briefly went over, those are 4 issues, and there's probably another dozen more that are as blatant as those. The ongoing I&I remediation program needs to be completed to determine what the required design flows will be without the I&I. Await TDEC approval after all the issues are resolved on the drawings and the bid package. It may sound like I'm against any upgrades to the lift station, but I'm in agreement. The lift station needs upgrades. It's 30 years old. Not everything in there is 30 years old. But what I'm against is doing something now that downgrades what we presently have installed in this bid package. We're taking a step down, and I don't think anybody wants that. Something needs to be the right solutions, just as Marty said. You want to do the right thing. Well, right now, all it's being doing is rushed through, and it's wrong. Also, we should continue to work with LUB to improve them receiving our wastewater as outlined in the TAP 2 projects. Thank you.
I'm Patty Riley, Kahidi, 101 New Nehi. Didn't come here planning on speaking, but listening to everybody else. Ed, you said we don't have a contract with Hopewell. Well, is the contract with Tellico Village to provide for Kahidi? No. Then why is our money going to them? It shouldn't be.
I'm not sure that is correct.
Then why can't we,
I'm not sure. I need to look into that. I'm not sure if it is. I know there are some funds for the EMRs that are allocated.
Okay, but can I finish, because you're in my time? You can, when I'm done.
No, I'm just coming.
Oh, okay. Okay. One of the other things is, while we're discussing getting a firehouse in Kahidi, why can't we take the money that's coming out of our POA that we're paying and put it in a special fund for the Kahidi firehouse or for the Kahidi EMRs? Why is it going to Tellico Village? They're not helping us. Huh? But their firehouse isn't helping us. So the money that you pay in Tellico Village that goes to the firehouse, that percentage of ours should go to a separate fund so that we can get something to help. Why should you be able to get in the village 3 minutes where it takes us 30 minutes? That's not fair. We're paying the same amount of money. We should get the same services.
We're evaluating this very heavily and looking at it
Well,
all financially and
why don't you start
everything.
putting this money in a special fund so the money's there? We're
Ma'am.
paying it. Some people have been paying it for 20 years.
I know for a fact some of that money goes to our EMRs.
It does. We have a Kahidi EMR
Then
fund.
why, when I was talking to one of the EMRs, they were told they didn't have money to make new, what are the bags they use, or whatever? The money wasn't there.
We do fund a Kahidi EMR project, and we work with Ginger, and there's always a fund, and we work with what their needs are. So we have always funded a Kahidi EMR that directly rates to Kahidi Emergency Response.
Is that all the money, or where's, you know? Yeah.
Well, we're not saying that, but you're saying that the money that you pay in your dues doesn't come back to Kahidi Safety, and I'm just telling you that we do provide money to the Kahidi
But
EMRs
is it
through
all
that.
the money we pay? Is it all the money that, is it the same percentage that the village, say it's 5%, the village pays 5% goes to Tellico Village Fire Department? Does that 5% of our dues go to the Kahidi EMRs?
It's $25 per household per year.
Okay.
So that's one of the things we're looking into. One of the things that came up, and we found out about this contract just last week. So we're looking, that's one of the things we want to talk to Zach about. We got to look at the financials, and we're going to try to rectify that.
Okay, so
I'm just
why
sa- I'm just
can't you
saying,
right now put that $25 a household in a special fund?
well, the portion of that is already going to the EMRs.
But
So-
why not the whole thing into a special fund, takes care of the EMRs
Well,
and
it
the
is
fire department?
allocated, it is allocated. There is a portion of the budget every year that's allocated to the EMRs.
Okay, but so just, that whole $25 is going to the Kahidi?
That's one thing we're not sure. It might be slightly less,
Then
but it's
the
not a
rest
lot
of the
less than the
money should be
$25.
going into a fund for our fire department.
We don't have a fire department. We don't have a
For when we
contract.
get one, so it's sitting
Okay,
there and it's
so-
ready, and we have the money.
That's fine, but we're trying to resolve this. We're working through the details. It takes time. It takes effort.
But
I'm
yes, it
spending.
takes time,
I'm
but
spending.
why should Tellico Village Fire Department be getting the money from us that should be going to ours?
It is not that I am aware of, but we were checking into it. That's all I
Okay.
can say.
Okay.
Levon Mitchell again. This won't take long, but this goes back to what Patty just asked. That was that help spot that I put in, that the Kahidi portion is probably about 16,000. And Ginger, I did speak to Ginger, and she said when EMR needs things, they do typically get them. What is not clear is at the end of the year, if they did not spend all of that money that came in, where does it go? And that was, would that roll over? And, who has the budget? And the EMRs just get to ask for stuff, but they really don't know how much money they have. And they don't know what happens at the end of the year. So I just wanted to clarify that, because that's what Ginger told me. And that was my help spot, asking for that explanation, but I haven't heard anything yet.
And the other thing you got to remember is all Tellico Village property owners, all, what, 6,900? Pay the dues, about 20 to 25 bucks a year goes for safety, paying for the Tellico Village Volunteer Fire Department, which is responsible for maintaining coverage for all the amenities that all property owners participate in. They protect the wellness center, they protect the yacht club. So when you say, well, where's my 25 bucks for Kahidi? Well, part of that is paid for EMR. We're going to look at all the numbers and analyze it. Part of it goes for coverage for all the amenities in the main village. It goes for the amenities sitting over in Kahidi, your clubhouse, the community center. So it's not that simple, and we'll take a look at what's the best solution. I mean, the best solution is get you this response time for both fire and for medical. The answer to that may not be a building sitting on Kahidi property, right? It's what gets you the response time, and what's it cost, and how do you pay for it? So this, I don't get it, you get it, everybody pays the bill here. It's Tellico Village. It covers all amenities, no matter what county they reside in.
Okay, last one, we got to move on. Go ahead.
Good afternoon. My name is Zach Perry. I'm the chief of Hopewell now. Came just to introduce myself to you. I've had many meetings with CEOs in the past, and unfortunately, they never advised me of working on a service agreement with the POA. Had I known that, I would have probably already had that done many years ago. I can all understand legal loopholes and understand the reason that's done. Being the authority having jurisdiction over that area, which means I'm responsible for fire and rescue in that area. It falls on my shoulders now. Every resident in there has been wonderful to us for many, many years, and we are greatly appreciative of that. Unfortunately, when it is volunteer, you have time to drive to the stations, time to get in the trucks, and time to get to where we have to go. Loudoun County and Monroe County, there's a lot of differences in the counties in the way they're funded, the way they operate, the way 911 works. Unfortunately, that call from earlier was discussed. EMR's never got a page from the 911 system. They just sent it to an ambulance and sent the ambulance. So therefore, nobody knew they needed to go. Unfortunately, 911 is not infallible. We do what we can with what we got. Hopefully, this is going to bring up a dialogue between us and you and our residents to increase what we can do. If we get a station close, we get a station in the neighborhood, as long as we get something settled. 20-something years ago, the POA said, we're going to build you a station when we get to X number of houses. I've had that conversation many times over the years. We fortunately had a past chief that died about a year ago. I asked him about how that process went. He came, sat down, talked about who he talked to and all these agreements. So it was agreed upon to do it 20 years ago. But now we're in the future. Everybody's long since gone. We're just trying to get better service. Brings me to some water questions, and I know y'all talk about a lot of water in the village because I've watched a lot of the film on here. A house over 1,000 square feet and fully involved in flames will take more than 1,000 GPM, which is more than what the water system will apply in Kahidi. So the irrigation system for the golf course, I don't know if there's a way for that to dump water when we need it into a tank where we don't actually hook to the system, but we can actually get access to water that comes out of the lake that way. That would be one alternative. TRDA is working on plans with TVA for a permit for where we shoot the fireworks at, so we can get a truck to draft. There's about 4 other points where it's 300, 400 feet from the lake. That will require permits too through TVA. We're in process of that. We're probably 18 months on the drafting point, so we're looking at ways to get water without getting it from TAS side of the system, because most of the hydrants are between 800 and 1,100 GPM. There's 45 hydrants in Kahidi, so we're looking at different options. Hopefully we can get to talk to y'all and fix some of these things. Thank you.
I'm going to be very quick. I'm Gig Wilkowski, and I'm speaking for my neighbors so you don't forget the storage unit proposal for the corner of Maple Hill and 444. I spoke at the town hall. Y'all were the entire board was very gracious to me, and I appreciate it. And I came here to say thank you from not just from me, but from my neighbors. Thank you.
Okay, well, we got to move on. We're 45 minutes past our allotted open forum time, so.
I just want to clear one thing up with Judy. Judy, I am Sue Amiot, and I am the treasurer of the Hopewell Fire Department. I get money back from the POA when I submit an invoice. Judy and I are working closer together, so I know how much we have, I know how much I can ask for, and it's all being taken care of. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, we're going to move on with a quick update on Tanasi.
Good afternoon. I'm Scott McCrae, the project manager for Tanasi and TAP. So let me quickly go over the Tanasi construction update. As I mentioned at the town hall last week, we did complete the cart path behind the 9th green all the way around to the boat dock. We had it cleaned off yesterday. Unfortunately, with the rain last night, it got drowned again. We did open the new parking lot this morning, so for those of you that might have gone over toward the golf course, we will have that and keep that open. We moved the fences around the parking lot. We have the old parking lot kind of blocked off so you can't get into it, so hopefully no one will make that mistake. We finished the erosion control around the parking lot, so I think we should be good there. The last place we have to do erosion control right now is above the boat, the access to the boat dock where the cart path terminates at the boat dock. We've got all the footers for the pro shop excavated. We had all the forms put in yesterday, and unfortunately we can't get inspection until we get the steel in, and that will be going as soon as we can get the water pumped out from last night's rain. But they were working on that this morning. Right now, we're about 2 to 3 weeks behind schedule due to the rain. I'm working with the superintendent and the project manager at RTC to look at ways of shortening that up so that once we get under roof, we'll be able to catch up on that. And we are still scheduled for a first quarter of 2026 opening. Just again to show you, this is the entrance to the new parking lot. The old parking lot is over on the left. That was the way you were getting in. That is now going to become our construction parking lot. We were out there today actually starting to tear up the asphalt since we couldn't work in the dirt. We decided to tear up the parking lot. Let's see, why is that not moving forward? Oh, that's the pointer. Sorry, pushed the wrong button, my bad. So this is the cart path that I mentioned we had cleaned off yesterday. You can see how beautiful it was when I took the photograph. That was covered with about 6 inches of mud this morning due to the rain last night. We've got that cleaned off now, and we'll be getting the silt fence in there to withhold the water. And one more slide for me, please, and I think we're done. When you return from the 18th, green, now you'll be able to pull right into the parking lot, put your clubs into your car, and then return the car to the cart barn going down through the parking lot. So just wanted to show you that. So it should be a lot more convenient for everybody. In the past, I know we weren't letting carts go into the parking lot. Now you'll be able to bring the cart to and from your car. So that'll make it a lot more convenient for all of the golfers. And the access to the boat dock continues to be in the same area right by the temporary pro shop. Unfortunately, we cannot pave that right now, so it will be a little rough when you go down there because it is just compacted gravel, and we'll make sure we keep it compacted for boat dock access. Just a real quick TAP update. We do have 3 active projects. We have the permit for the main pump station. It's been approved by TDEC, and as Gary mentioned earlier, we do have the construction bids out. We're scheduled for bid opening on the 29th. We will be taking into consideration some of the comments. The elevated water tank, we've put that, while it was under review by PSAC, we have put that on hold right now, pending a request to Jacobs, and again, I'll leave that to the board. The Kahidi pump station, we have a task order issued to Jacobs to redesign that pump station and get that moving forward. And here's just the quick update. We did have a pre-bid meeting. We had 4 contractors come, all good general contractors in this area. They've worked for other local utilities around, so we feel like we'll get some good bids there. Bid opening will be at the POA office. I believe it's 1300 on the 29th of May, so next Thursday. And we are anticipating, assuming things go well, getting the construction contract issued so that they can start in July. The goal is, of course, to finish by September in order to preserve the grant. We've got $2 million at risk there with that grant, so that's why we're pushing pretty hard on that. And then, as everybody's been talking I&I efforts, I think we came up with, as I mentioned before, some really good, a lot of people said it was going to take 5-10 years to do this. We've done in about 6 months what we anticipated would take multiple years to do. We've got 2 full-time inspectors. I did lose one for a month due to some medical issues with some other staff. So we've been doing about somewhere in the neighborhood of 25 inspections a day. We'll double that back up to 50. We've been right behind them with the remediation, so as they identify, when we get a list of about 25 to 30 tanks that need extensions, we turn our public works people loose on that and get that done. So far we've done about 380 tank extensions total, which are all the ones that have been identified right now. I think this week we identified a few more, which we haven't done yet. Like I said, we've got about a dozen or so that we've identified. We're about 25% of the way done with inspections throughout the village, and we do anticipate, if we continue at this pace, that we'll be finished before the end of the year with everything. So working that pretty aggressively on the I&I, so that's really, I think, a really great goal that we have there and all. So that was the end of my updates. Any questions for me before I
Quickly,
leave? Certainly,
are you
Mike.
finding any other issues rather than just low tanks?
We have found a number of those. We have found a couple where tree roots have been intruding. We have found one where the tank itself was damaged, the top part of the tank. Probably, other than physical damage to the tank, let me rephrase. We have also fixed everyone that we found in that situation. So when we find it, we identify it, and our water and sewer people get out there and make the repairs. But probably the most common problem that we're finding that is damage, but where we might get some extra water, is the big tanks that are at or near the surface or maybe below where the lids are, the big mowers running over them, and there are either cracks or holes in the lids. When we come across those, they get replaced. So we are taking that into account. I do find it interesting that most of the homeowners don't know it. We are finding that. So I will just mention, if any homeowner notices that you've got a crack in your lid or a hole in the lid on your tank, please let us know. Well, we will be more than happy to come out and replace it, because that will certainly help us as well. We've had a bunch of really, I'm going to say, from the I&I standpoint, some really good rain in the last couple of weeks. From the Tanasi construction point, some really bad rain in the last couple of weeks. So I'll be doing an analysis of the data that we've gotten. And I think, as everybody knows, sometimes it'll rain 2 inches at Kahidi and it'll be bone dry at Tanasi or over here. Sometimes it'll be the other way. Yesterday we got 2 inches of rain at Tanasi, so that's kind of killed our construction. But that's the other thing I have to look into, is where our meters are. If I don't get a big rain in Kahidi, it doesn't matter what it did in the main village. I don't have any data, but I'll be analyzing that data and getting and reporting back next month.
We've had a lot of rain in Kahidi, including last night, so you should have some
absolutely.
good data.
Yes. Anything else? Joel?
Yeah, thanks, Scott. It's a lot of rain last night. Any spillovers?
No. No, we've had a couple of times where we've noticed the wet wells in some of the pump stations are above normal, but the pumps have been able to keep up with it. And part of that is we haven't had what we would call, the overflow type rain, like 5 inches. We've had 2 or 3, but we've been able to accommodate that. And also, I think we've been fortunate there. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Next, we have update on policies from Beth.
All right, I'm going to do it from over here because mine's quick. We'll go to the next one. First, we're going to start with the communications policy. One thing we're doing as we review these is kind of make them all in the same format, so they're easy to evaluate quickly. So we'll be adding policy numbers. To most of the policies, they didn't have them. We're working on some technical changes on terminology for who is the authority. I'll be updating that. And then on this one, the biggest change was at the very bottom in red. It says all POA affiliated websites, social media pages, and business applications must have a minimum of 2 POA employees assigned as administrators. And that was an add. And with that, I would ask for the board's approval on this policy.
John, I'll make a motion that the board approve the update to the POA communication policy that is now called number 059.
I'll second that, and that line that they added, that is standard IT practice. You know, to have 2 administrators on any type of application.
Yeah. Any other comment? All those in favor? Okay.
All right, next. Next, this is not so much a policy as it is a document that's on the POA. This is a document access request. And so what we've updated here is the rate. So we provide a lot of things just free of charge, but if it gets excessive, this policy works out what those costs would be. So we update them based on current wage averages. The last time this was updated was in 2013, so we brought it current to 2025.
This would not require a board vote to change that rate. It's not even a policy per se, it's just,
It's an attachment to a policy.
yeah.
And that's all I have this month. Next month, I'll be back with several more.
Okay. Next, we've got Matt with the general manager report.
Okay, thank you. Wanted to mention just a couple of things. I generally at the directors meeting prior to the board meeting, I say, directors, please provide me something that I can talk about in my general manager report. And I ask always specifically for good news. And I did receive some interesting things that I think are very worth noting. We happen to have a couple of brothers who work in different departments in Tellico Village. We've got Carl Shaw, who, as I understand, has been over equipment maintenance at Tanasi since maybe the course was constructed, and does incredible work with our golf course equipment. I think an overlooked piece of golf course maintenance is the ability to have equipment running. No equipment running, not much going on in golf course maintenance. It's hugely imperative. And then also working in Public Works is Jackie Shaw, his brother. I think Jackie has been with Tellico Village just a matter of months, I think, more than his brother. Carl is coming up on 30 years. I think Jackie has passed 30 years with the village. In polite terms, Jackie has bailed me out more than once. He is an absolute force in Public Works. He takes care of all of our equipment maintenance, along with Jay. And just wanted to make mention of that. These are 2 people you probably would never see. They will go about doing what they're doing in a very humble kind of way. Don't go looking for attention. Matter of fact, I think if I asked them to be here to show them, they would both say, I got to come to a board meeting, and I would say, yeah, and then they would. But it would not be their interest. But I just wanted to call out 2 of these unsung heroes that work for us that really keep a lot of our rolling stock moving, that we count on every day. And when I think about somebody really just about being here since the very beginning and still here, I don't even want to think about them leaving, and that's something I don't talk about. But for right now, it's just an absolute pleasure to have both these people on our team. The Human Resource Department endured 3 audits, workers' comp, payroll audit, and a 401k audit. Passed them all with flying colors, which is an absolute relief. If you've ever worked in an organization that has troubles with payroll, that's a bad day, every day. And I'm really deeply happy for HR. Want to echo the comments about good job to the finance department. Getting the audit done every year is always sort of a deep breath relief. It is an incredible amount of work, but I wanted to make note of one thing. As you heard, that was a clean audit opinion. And I think as being a city manager, I've probably been through 8 to 12 audits that I can remember. I want to tell you that you have 3 board members, Mike Braddock, Steve Schneider, and John Orr, and also Mike Harrington from the FAC. For a clean audit, they gave the clean audit an audit before it ever even got to the point of board consideration. I cannot say enough to a number of people, and it probably goes unrecognized for all of these board of directors. I'm recognizing these 3, but Joel, Mike, Ed, Marty, all of you, it's darn near a full-time job for these people. And it is more often than not thankless, but I do want to extend my sincere appreciation for all the work of the board of directors. Whether it's you're working on an audit or you're working with an advisory committee to work on a particular project, it is a gosh darn lot of work, and I am deeply appreciative, and that concludes my report.
Thank you. Update on the balanced scorecard. Joel, you want to kick it off, or you want?
Yeah, thank you, John. So last month, John committed that we would provide a introduction of our balanced scorecard. As you may or may not know, the Long Range Planning Committee has accepted the goal this year to develop a balanced scorecard for Tellico Village for 2026. So the team has gotten together. They've gone through the process of reading the balanced scorecard book out of the Harvard Business Review, the business school, excuse me, and they've gone through and systematically met every week, sometimes multiple times a week, to develop in development of this scorecard. So we've invited Otto here to give you an overview of what is a balanced scorecard and where are we at as of today. Thank you.
Thanks, Joel. First of all, I'd like to thank you all for everything you do. The board obviously puts in a lot of hours as well, and all of the POA employees. And that's what this is really for, this balanced scorecard piece. We have a subcommittee on the Long Range Planning Committee of John Vila, Virginia Kendrick, Dominic Adriana, and Phil Brenner. And Joel has been our board rep. Overall, we've read the Big Blue Sleeping Pill, which is the balanced scorecard book. We probably have at least 200 man-hours involved in this project, and I'm only going to show you 2 slides today, and looking forward to giving you more information on it later in the summer once we have it completed. What is a balanced scorecard? First of all, this is our first turn on it. It's our first attempt at it, and it'll be an annual project. It will be updated annually, and it'll be updated anytime we think it needs to be updated. And it's really for the POA leadership to guide them in strategy. So it's a focused strategy for measuring organizational performance across 4 perspectives. Traditionally, in the business world, we use the financial perspective as our metrics. Unfortunately, financial perspectives they're lag. They tend to lag. They're as good as our last month, our last quarter, our last year's performance. So the whole balanced scorecard premise is based on adding in 3 other perspectives: customer, internal processes, and learning and growth. The customer, in our case here, is the property owners or other people who use our amenities or our golf courses and our food services. The internal processes are things that can may become more efficient, things that we do within the organization that we can focus on to get more out of it. And the bottom line is learning and growth is really based on our employees. The ones that are closest to the customer are the ones who are where the good ideas are going to come from, that change the processes, that make our financials better, and that make customer satisfaction happen. So that's kind of where we started. Why do we want to do a balanced scorecard? Well, obviously, it's really to drive internally generated fundamental change in a continuous improvement manner. So we keep getting better over time, and I'll show you on the next slide here in just a second on what the overall goal is. It's kind of a pyramidal scheme a little bit. Where are we in the process? We've identified organizational strategic objectives. We believe those are complete. We're working with Mr. Benoit and the board to define measures and potential targets for each of these strategic objectives. There are multiple ones of those that I'll show you here in just a second. And we're socializing it with the board and the management, the leadership. Our next step there would be to present to the department heads with, obviously, Mr. Benoit presenting it to his department heads and implement it as a tool in the 2026 budgeting process. Where do we stand right now? We believe we're on schedule, and like I said, we're refining measures and targets for the overall implementation. Okay, so this is my last slide. So you can see this is the scorecard. It's a very simple thing. It's a representation. Behind all of these strategic objectives, let me start at the top. We have the vision and mission on the top and the values on the bottom that were defined in 2021 that were approved by the board. So those are our vision, mission, and values for Tellico Village. On the left-hand side, you will see the 4 perspectives I just outlined on the previous slide. You'll see that customer is number 1. And the reason that is, traditionally, in a for-profit business, financial is obviously number 1. We'd like ROI, return on investment, those kind of things. In our case, our subcommittee, we feel that we are transitioning from a growth community into a sustained community. And our number 1 objective here is to put the customer first and achieve high customer service satisfaction. So how do we do that? Well, employees, if we go down to the bottom, the learning and growth piece, employees are our number 1 asset, right? They're the ones who are closest to the customer throughout, and they're the ones who are going to come up with the good ideas that make us more efficient and better over time. So continuous improvement. So obviously what we want to do is we'd like to invest in them. We'd like to train our employees in numerous areas, and we want to empower them we'd like to empower them to make those suggestions, and we can act on those to make the entire organization better. Obviously, it's important to have employee satisfaction, and retention is important across all of the departments within the POA. And then our goal is to link employee goals to the scorecard. When I say that, we'd like every employee within the POA to understand what we're trying to achieve here with this overall strategy, so that everybody's pulling on the same end of the rope, from the deck plates all the way to the leadership, and we're all making this organization better. And that includes the customers. The customer feedback is imperative on both a negative and a positive standpoint to reinforce what we're trying to do with the employees, right? We want to retain them, and we want to motivate them to get better over time. So you'll see the internal processes there in the center. We want to improve operational efficiency. Anybody can come up with ideas for that. Anyone in the organization. Of course, we want to maintain high quality and reliable infrastructure and amenities and innovative amenities and customer services. We want to make our amenities better within the fiscal constraints we're given. And then obviously in financial, we're looking at controlling costs and optimizing discretionary revenue. Discretionary revenue meaning in our terms, outside of POA fees or assessments. So things with amenities, wellness, food service, et cetera, we'd like to optimize that. The last thing I'd like to leave you with here is, besides the fact that this is an ongoing process, it's going to refine it, it's going to get refined over time. This is our first spin at it again. But we believe as a subcommittee that this is an invaluable tool for satisfying property owners, empowering and motivating employees, and improving organizational efficiency overall. So subject to your questions, that's my brief.
Thank you, Otto. That was excellent. So one thing that I'm just going to add to what Otto said, if you look, there's a big gray arrow in the background. This is basically cause and effect. If we have well-trained, happy employees and robust processes, what are the results? Happy customers and good financial results. That's where you're seeing our focus. So thank you, Otto. Appreciate that.
Let me just add one other thing. I neglected to, the 3 columns that are blank to the right. Those are our measures, which are metrics. Then there would be targeted numbers in there that we would try to shoot for over time in 2026. And then we have initiatives that would be from each department kind of feeding into the overall measures and targets of the POA, things we could do to make it better and to achieve the measures and targets that are determined by the board and by the POA leadership. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Otto. That was good. Appreciate all the work. As he said, there's been a lot of work just in a short period of time to get to this point. I know I've been in a number of meetings, and Joel has many more. But it is a fundamental planning tool in a lot of businesses, so I think it makes sense to implement it here. So with that, we'll turn it over to Judy to give us the financial report. Which would be the big green box on that scorecard.
And as always, I will head in the wrong direction with this before we start. No, I didn't. I think that's the first time I've ever gone in the right direction on the first try. I want to start off again and thank everyone for their involvement and help with getting us through the audit. And quick update on the accounting system project. We are still on target. We are doing lots of testing right now. There have been a lot of questions asked, and we're working through various issues to make everything go smoothly, and we're still, again, on target and looking forward to having that new system. And next will be the tax return. Well, it's always, we'll go right from one thing to the next. Okay, let's start off looking at our balance sheet. Our cash balance is $34.9 million at the end of April. That's up $4.1 million since the end of December. We are earning a weighted average rate of 4.52% on our reserve balance and 3.5% on much of our operating cash. Our total assets are $74.2 million. That's up $5.7 million since the end of December. Our total liabilities are $21 million. That's up $3.6 million since December, primarily due to increases in the unearned revenue category that we'll look at over there on the bottom right here in a minute. Our debt-to-equity ratio is currently 17%. That's an improvement from December at 18%. And let's look over here at our AR and our allowance for doubtful accounts. The health of our accounts receivable remains strong. The ratio of the allowance balance to the AR is 43% this month. That's up a little bit since December, and that's a move in the not good direction, but it's still a very good number. Information on suspended accounts. The balance due on suspended accounts is up since December, but down year over year. The current balance of $947,000 represents 44% of our current accounts receivable balance. And suspended accounts, as the slide shows, are those that are more than 90 days past due. Unearned revenue, the current balance is $9.4 million. And again, we still see a lot of those upfront payments in the balance from residents for prepaid assessments, prepaid golf, unlimited golf, and rec fees. The utility assessments, that's the installation fees for putting new tanks in the ground for new homes, and the collected unspent water sewer infrastructure asset fee fund each represent 28% of that current total. Looking at our water sewer infrastructure asset fee fund balance, the balance carried forward from 2024 was $1,113,000. I'm going to be looking at all the numbers with the little red asterisk. $1,837,000 has been contributed to the account through April. We have spent $304,000 on 3 projects so far this year: the elevated water tower, the main pump station, and odor control. As a result of these transactions, we will see $304,000, that same amount, represented as earned revenue on our income statement, while the remainder of the funds collected are still included in that unearned revenue balance that we just saw on the previous slide, $2.6 million. Additionally, the account has earned $23,250 of interest income in 2025, and the balance is now $2,670,000, again, as we saw on the balance sheet on the previous slide. Looking at our income statement, we finished April with a gross profit of $10,321,000, which was $74,000 better than the forecast, which is basically on target, 1% off. We beat the prior year gross profit year-to-date by year-over-year, I should say, by $561,000. Our expenses through April totaled $7,692,000, which were $281,000 better than the budget. The primary contributors to this result are the maintenance expenses, which were $198,000 better than budget. Most of this was from the various public works departments, maintenance of sewer lines, common property, golf maintenance, rec, and food service also have some unspent maintenance expenses. Our other income and expenses are contributing $656,000 favorably to our budget variance through April. $304,000 of this total comes from the revenue, again, that I just mentioned, now reported as earned from the water sewer infrastructure asset fees that have been spent on one of the 5 budgeted projects, and interest income, which is $236,000 greater than expected year-to-date. And some of this is timing differences based on our expectation of utilizing our reserves on budgeted projects throughout the year. Our net income through April totaled $2,616,000. Adding back the depreciation expense, our net surplus is $3,432,000, which is $1,010,000 better than budget expectations. Moving on. Here's a look at our net surplus and subsidy by division, net of reserve spending. We can see that the net operational surplus just mentioned, $3,432,000, less $2,396,000 of reserve spending through the end of April, leaves us with a net surplus after reserve and spending of $1,036,000 year-to-date. And here's the board reserve spending report. Our total reserve spending budget, including carryovers from 2024, is $21.7 million. That's the $5,647,000 plus the $16,071. Authorized spending on these projects so far is $15.7 million, and the divisional spending results for 2025 total $2,396,000, which agrees with the slide that you just saw. And then we have funding requests. We have 9 funding requests this month, 8 for public works, 1 for food service. 6 of these requests require board approval, and 3 are courtesy mentions for everyone. And I'm going to start off and mention the the one for food service real quick before Matt gets up here to talk about the rest of them, which are all public works. Food service is requesting a one-time $18,500 cost for a new point-of-service system to replace their current system, which includes Aloha, Margin Edge, Hot Schedule, and How Was Your Meal Survey with the Toast point-of-sale system. This is to acquire software for $13.5 million, excuse me, I'm talking big numbers, $13.5 thousand, and another $5,000 for integration consulting with our CLA team that's helping us with Sage, which via their native inventory platform, Extra Chef. $18,500 total for their hardware and installation assistance.
So I'll make a motion that the board approve not to exceed $18,500 to be expended for acquisition of equipment needed for the Toast point-of-sale system, along with consulting services to integrate it into the accounting system from a monthly flow, or entry flow standpoint.
I second.
Comments from the board?
I just want to make sure that people know this integration will take away a manual process that we've been doing for years and years, so we'll be able to integrate that and to go smoothly and get better data off the system.
Yeah, it'll end up being real-time, daily financial data from food service as opposed to once a month. And all the other benefits. This has been worked on now for many months to get to this point, and I'm going to thank Skylar and Tom McPhee for all the work they did to do all the research and vetting of not only the product but the integration, which while we're implementing the system is not easy. So I'll ask if.
Well, I guess I would just add, this would be implemented over a multi-month period. The target in terms of seeing this actually started would be December 1. And how you'll know that this got implemented is if you come to one of our restaurants. So Skylar, I'm giving you a free plug here. You come to one of the Teleco restaurants, you're going to see a waiter or waitress with a handheld unit like you see at many commercial restaurants. So, and as Ed mentioned, this will have multiple mechanization benefits that we hope will derive efficiencies going forward.
Better customer service.
Also, I'd like to thank the IT committee. They did a lot of work with Tom and Skylar to make sure that this integrates with the accounting program, and Judy's team, they spent hours and hours researching this, so.
Yep. Okay, all those in favor? Okay.
Thank you very much.
All right, I'm going to jump around just a little bit. I think maybe I'll stay on this slide here, if that would be helpful to you. And I'm just going to run through the ones that need board approval. We are talking about neighborhood monument entry signs. You've probably seen the 8 or so that we completed in 2024 and 2025. This request is for 10 additional ones. The original work plan was to achieve all of the neighborhood entry signs that have a 444 intersection. As we've proceeded with this, we've identified 2 additional amenity-type signs. One is the one off of Tokwa Drive that will direct you towards the Tokwa Clubhouse. The other one, we refer to it as the Yacht Club sign, even though we have a Yacht Club sign, but it would be the entrance to this facility. We also identified one additional sign that is off 444, but is deteriorating to the point where we just can't really do anything with it. The wood is rotted, can't paint it, can't maintain it. So what we're talking about is 10 signs. I want to make clear the unit cost on 10 signs is not $9,000 a piece. That's not what we're talking about here. This funding request includes the sign face. It includes the faux sort of brick on the base, the construction of the base and all the materials associated with hanging the sign, as well as plant material and irrigation installation. So all total, you got something at about $9,000. The signs, for reference, are about $2,500 to $3,500, depending on the size. You'll see that this request exceeds the budgeted amount by $15,154. The reason for that is twofold. One is we ran into an issue this year where the delivery time on these signs was spanning in the 6 to 8 to 9 month range. So we're recognizing you want these signs, you better get them ordered. We are probably purchasing more than what we can install in 2025. Likely they may well arrive in 2025. Some of them will be installed in 2026. And what I'm really building towards is here, I didn't want to find myself back here making another funding request in 2026 to finish up the perceived plan. I would rather request everything we need to accomplish the work plan and push forward with this project, even though not all of them will likely get installed in 2025. They may, but they may not as well.
So is that all of them then?
That is all that is planned. There is potentially a horizon out there that I'm not interested in speaking about today, but there is a horizon. We do have some other amenity entrance signs that could be under consideration. There are also neighborhood signs of different size. Some of them may be the size of the table, different things that also could be considered. I'm not in a hurry to have that conversation until at least the 2026 budget. I think we would do well to get our hands around, now that we know we've been involved with this project, what it's going to cost, what would we be able to deliver, what is our ability to construct them. We are doing this with in-house forces, which I think is strategic, it's smart, but I don't want to get into the next horizon until it's time. So we're completing the work program that was identified, plus 2 amenity entrance signs and one that was just deteriorated to the point where we have to replace it.
Hey, Matt, I assume that, well, most of the townhome neighborhoods have their own sign, but I'm
Correct.
assuming they would be responsible if they wanted to get a similar looking sign.
Absolutely. We could put them in contact with the vendors and they could pretty much match it if they wanted to, but yeah. I'm talking, there's one that I drive by, I think it's called Mialakwa Shores. It's a sign that's about this height of this table I'm sitting at, maybe just as wide. There's a whole bunch of those that exist out there as well that right now I feel like we got enough on our plate.
Yep.
So I will make a motion that the board approve an amount not to exceed $90,154 for 25 neighborhood monument sign replacement along with associated landscaping materials.
Was that 25 or 10?
I don't know why 25
I think it
is
was,
written
that was
up
supposed to
there.
be 2025.
I think it's 2025. It's not 25 signs.
Oh, my bad. Okay.
10 signs.
10 signs. I read the wrong number.
Are you going to run the motion?
And I'll second it.
Don't forget that includes the labor, too.
Yeah.
Right.
There's no other comments? All those in favor?
Oh,
you got a
I thought we were
comment?
gonna have some questions. So, is this phase 2? Did we had 90,000, was that 90,000 last year for signs?
75.
Last year or for this year?
75 last year for the 8 or so that we got completed.
Okay.
75 this year, which I told PSAC, look, if you want me to spend just $75,000, I can do that. But my thought was, given the long lead time and the fact that I really don't want to have this conversation again on this project, I'd rather get done the work plan.
Thank you. So the understanding last year was it was cost under $100,000 to convert our neighborhood signs to this new style. Now I'm finding out that was only phase 1. This is phase 2.
I wouldn't call it phase 2. I would say we bit off an amount we could do in
Yeah.
2024. The work plan as envisioned that was handed to me is last year's work and then what is proposed on the screen.
Okay. So I was under that understanding as a resident that the under 100,000 was to convert the signs over, but that was not holistic. That was a partial changeover. I wasn't aware of that.
Yep. I'm sorry, was there a vote?
No.
Okay.
Really good, okay. All those in favor? 6-1? Okay.
Okay, the next 3, asphalt patching for PMM, that's an acronym for Polymer Modified Master Seal. Crack sealing and the PMM application. are all basically one project, 3 steps. Prior to PMM, which is a street sealing technique that we use, that we are coming up on our 5th year of application of this, and are finding really that street sealing is increasing the length and life. It's not increasing the length. You just started looking at me and I went, oh, he's going to catch that. Increasing the life of our asphalt. And this will be our 5th year for making this investment. It requires asphalt patching in advance. So where we have significant pavement distress in the asphalt, we dig that out and install new asphalt. Where we have cracks, we go through and seal all those cracks. And then the PMM asphalt sealing, which I think Tellico Village is getting accustomed to. It's 2 consecutive days of a street sealant that's applied. Generally try to get after it as quick as we can in the morning. It generally takes about a business day for it to dry, and then there's a second application. This year, I was really pleased to see for asphalt patching, we did get a couple of different, an additional vendor that was interested in participating. PMM is the same vendor that we have been using. We are prepared to execute this, certainly hoping for your vote today. We're ready to get going in June. I want to credit Matthew Johnson with doing an incredible amount of coordination with our other departments. This application this year in particular will pave the road that leads to Chota Rec. They got a camp to work around. We've got contingencies with that. We're working around member guests so that we don't box people in on that day. And we're getting pretty good. PMM is not a simple one to apply. The logistics associated with it are not simple, but I think we're getting pretty gosh darn good at it.
So, Matt, I guess what I would think is we could do one motion because the asphalt patching, the crack sealing, and the application of the PMM is all one program overall.
Correct.
Okay, so I'll make a motion that the board approve an amount not to exceed $218,859 for a PMM program in 2025 that covers crack sealing and also asphalt patching.
I'll second that, but I'd like to ask on the question. Matt, in that space, we've had it for about 5 years now. Are we getting, it looks like we're getting pretty good results out of it from what I've seen.
I absolutely feel that way. I think if I'm recalling correctly, and don't hold me to this, but my recollection is Kahidi was among the first to receive specifically this product. There are other streets in Tellico Village who were the recipients of some previous versions. But I can tell you from my observation, and I know some of you have been the recipient of PMM here even since I've been around. I drive to my in-laws' house in Tomotley. It's funny because PMM makes it look like a brand new street. It is not by any stretch, but that was just applied last summer. I've driven that street a couple of times here in the last month, and I just look at it and I think to myself, if you can do better with a street sealant, I'd have to see it. I mean, I think we are getting to the point where I feel more and more and more comfortable that this is an excellent investment. I'm going to put it in rough terms. We just paid something in the neighborhood of $19.50 a square yard for mill and overlay. We're paying something in the neighborhood of $1.54 for PMM. If you can even squeeze 2 or 3 additional years, I'm thinking 5, but if you can squeeze 2 additional 3 years to fight off a $19 a square yard investment, it's a smart business move.
That's what I say. The other thing is it winterizes the roads.
Correct.
So that the water doesn't get down in there and ice up and crack the roads like some of our northern neighbors have experienced.
Correct.
And I think as you've mentioned previously, what we're attempting to do is on collector roads, that may end up being more mill and replacement, whereas neighborhood roads are going to be more oriented toward PMM type work.
Correct. And the reason for that is the collector roads. So by definition, a collector road leads to a neighborhood road. A collector road, for instance, is Chota Drive. When you try to do PMM on a collector road, you're shutting down effectively 2 or 3 neighborhoods. When you do it on a neighborhood street, you're shutting down 8 to 10, maybe less than that, homes on the street for 2 consecutive days. Executing PMM on a collector road is tough. And that's why, not specifically for your approval, we've gone with the segmented overlay approach on the collector roads because it's a whole lot easier to administer and a lot less obtrusive to traffic.
So before PMN, what was the product or process we used?
It was a street sealant called HA5.
HA5?
HA5 failed where it's simply where streets have too much shade. It just wouldn't dry and wouldn't adhere, and you can tell when you see HA5 streets, it's just starting to crack. There was a previous product to that that was really, really, really good, but not environmentally safe. And then a previous product to that even, that I can't remember the name of some of these things.
So I remember
right now.
making that transition from HA5 to PMM.
Yes.
That's probably 4, 5 years ago.
5, yeah.
If there's nothing else, all those in favor of the motion on the table? Okay.
All right, the last one. This is going to be quite a way to wrap up the day. So on April the 7th, the Public Services Advisory Committee received a presentation on the elevated water storage tank. As we sit, we have passed the 60% design level for the elevated water storage tank. My intent with the presentation was, got some new members on PSAC, some that were not involved in it from the very beginning. I've certainly got 2 new board liaisons on the committee. We're reaching a point, 60%. If you were looking at a design curve, the curve is steepest leading up to 60. The effort and the money spent leading up to 60 is as steep as it's going to get. Once you get to 90, it's not as steep, and the money spent is not as great. But in any case, if we're going to continue with this project, at some point, my feeling was we've got to get either some concurrence, yes, it makes sense to move forward, or let's rethink and talk about other options. That presentation in many ways was frustrating. It was not fun to watch. It wasn't super fun to be there. I would say, not because those comments not reflecting what I'm about to say, there's some very, very good questions that were asked. New members of PSAC, there were board members there, a lot of questions about, I'm going to try to capture these. I have them in 4 bulleted items. I'm going to try to capture them. If TAS is to supply more water, what does that mean for your pressure problems? If LUB was able to alleviate some things on their side of the system, what does that mean for your pressure problems? How much TAS water, we talk about the term a model, so it's an estimate of how much water's coming in, how much being consumed, and where do you have your pressure points for a demand problem. Where you have significant demand, you'll suffer in pressure. So it's a model about how much TAS water was in the model, and how specifically is LUB's water coming into the system, and at what duration, and how much pressure, and how many gallons. All very, very good questions that sort of lead to, and a continuing thing that you will hear, a lot of our water modeling comes from the 2021, 2022, 2019 era. It needs to be updated. And so as we're proceeding on, my thought was this, and make no mistake, I don't relish in the idea of spending more money. But when you have these kinds of questions, I'm hoping to build to a point where the board blesses, move on with the project or don't. My only thought was, my best guess is get the questions answered, and discuss that with PSAC on May the 5th. In the course of this very same or similar presentation, the question was asked, well, what if residents have questions? What if others have questions? And my immediate reaction was, I'd like to get all the questions answered. It's time to get everything out on the table. This project needs its day in court. You will be the judge and the jury. And I just soon have all the evidence on the table, one way or the other, so I said, fine. Residents can ask questions too, I'm okay with that. So where we stand at this point was the original task order with the sort of 4 bulleted items that I captured from the April 7th meeting was a task order valued at about $26,000. During the meeting, when the point was made, well, what if others have questions? What if others have inquiries? I said, well, I'll probably see you in a month. And the sort of response that I got from a board liaison, well, let's keep it moving. So a subsequent conversation with my 2 board liaisons was, let's make room for others to ask questions. $40,000, is that correct or not correct? I don't know. I answered your question today. But we're trying to recognize the fact the interest is transparency, getting all the questions on the table, and provide the evidence to the judge and jury, and we need to make a decision on this project. So that's where it stands. I'm not excited about spending more money, but my feeling is if there are lingering questions, if there's better data out there, if there's questions about our utility providers and what their role and influence is in it, it's probably a very good time to get these questions answered. So that is this task order. It was approved, I believe there was 1 dissenting vote on PSAC, if I'm remembering correctly. No, there was not? Okay. And approved with some grumbling a bit from the Finance Advisory Committee. And I recognize I don't love coming here asking for more money to study a project that is well under design, but it's the best path I can think of at this point to sort of bring it in for a landing one way or the other.
Matt, will Jacobs interface with LUB and TAS?
Yes.
Okay.
So spending this money could save us from doing the tank if they decide that's not needed with LUB and task, or?
Absolutely. I wouldn't want to say to the
that.
public, spend $40,000 and you're out of,
Yeah.
you don't never have to worry about it.
But it'll put all the questions to rest.
That is my sincere hope.
Okay, thank you.
So I'll make a motion that the board approve task order for Jacobs Engineering to conduct additional technical review related to the elevated water storage tank in an amount not to exceed $40,000.
I second that.
So I'm not going to, I agree with you, Matt. We need to get the tuna on the table. And I think you did a really nice job summarizing those 4 takeaways, if you will, from the meeting. Last month, I explained my 4 concerns, me personally dealing with them, and I asked you for some background, and I thank you for the information that you provided on 3 of the 4. We did not, what I asked Matt for was, how did they bill us for 3 different meetings and 1 different memo that it gave us regarding a portion of this as being the elevated tank. So I didn't find any problems with the December 6th bill nor the January 21st meeting bill, but on the April 7th bill that we're talking about, they did charge us 4 hours for metering, if you will, for the water. And the fact that they came and showed us a product that was antiquated at best with, past information, they presented it to about 24 POA residents, or POA employees, residents, and PSAC members. It was very misleading to provide them with information that was patently wrong, and knowing that we met with them previously and told them quite clearly that the information was antiquated because it did not did not include the upgrades that were given. And the waste of time it gave our employees, and the fact that now we're going to go pay them more. I'd like to find out more about what Gary said. If we own that product, could we give it to another engineering firm and say, can you go ahead and do the new modeling with the 1 million gallon tank in the Von Orr booster station? Again, I don't support these guys. I would still like to see how much they charged us for the January 21st memo, which was quite lengthy, and at the end says we have no recommendations based off the information we've given them. Time and time again, they're just don't seem to have the same values and goals that we do. That's it. Thank you.
So you and I have talked about this. It was talked about at the FAC. My belief is you're going to hire somebody, whether it's Jacobs or somebody else, to get all the answers. I firmly believe if you don't get the answers a small group of folks want to hear, you're going to have more questions. And you continue to kick this can down the road. You've had engineers on PSAC work on this for years. We're at 60% complete on design. I know I'm not an engineer, and I understand people got questions. But at some point, you got to get out of analysis paralysis and make a decision. So I cannot support spending any more money answering questions. We need to get ahead along on having a vote by the board that says, do you support the Band-Aid approach of putting in a proposed new irrigation plan that's going to cure your pressure problems? And make a decision on, are we going to address it or not? So I cannot support spending any more money answering questions when I firmly believe when you come back, there are going to be more questions because you're not going to satisfy folks.
So, Gary, I appreciate the comments that you had, and I know you've made those before. And to me, the difference is you're working with PSAC now. I mean, I know you tried before and with some limited success. What I'd really like to see is you, because you have your experience, and we got Mike, he's got some experience in this area too. It seems to me we should be able to come up with a consensus with PSAC and with Jacobs on what we should really be doing. I'm not sure why we're not getting there, because in a way, I kind of agree with Steve. How long are we going to continue having questions? I think we've got to come up with solutions and other options, other viable options, if the one presented isn't in the opinion of PSAC or you or others, the right thing to do, and figure out what is that right thing to do. And if it's going to cost us, $14,000 more to get that, I'm all for it, because that's to be sure we get the right questions answered. But I don't want it to be a continual Q&A, and with just like what Steve's saying is, well, if we don't come back then with the option that we like, we're going to have more questions. Let's get it figured out. Let's get past this and let's move on. I'm not an engineer either, but it seems like we should be able to figure out. I'm concerned with what you said about the sewer too. I mean, if we're putting in the wrong solution for the new pump station, that concerns the heck out of me. And so, and that's why I asked Mike if he looked at it yet. Apparently, he hasn't had a chance to look at it. So
I've been busy in meetings.
yeah, so we need to get there. And I don't care what anybody else says, if they want to vilify the board or all the committees. I don't care. I want us to get to the right solution.
Steve, in that space, we met with Jacobs, and they presented their findings utilizing the 2019 water model and not including any task water added to the system. Since then, LUB has installed a 1 million gallon tank at 1588 Watt Cemetery Road, put booster pump stations in on Von Orr Road, and run 1,600 foot of 12-inch pipe dedicated solely to support the village. Matt and I have also sat down with LUB on a Teams call Monday.
I'm losing track of the days.
Yeah. And we've had a couple other meetings up there with them as well. They are currently upgrading their model, because the model that they had that I saw yesterday was a 2019, 2018 model. I'm going to get a copy of that report as well. And I'm going to read it and digest it for another 96 pages of my life I'll never get back. But there are improvements. There's existing water that's not even included. There's the 1,500 gallons we can get a minute from TAS. It was in the report, and when specifically asked to Jacobs, did they include that in their calculations, they indicated negative. That's not in the low pressure flows that they have. Matt's graciously offered me some help with some of his staff to go out and do some, what we call go to Gemba, go specifically to some of the challenging hydrants and places and do a flow test, rather than just sit down and look at a model and sit from a computer chair someplace and get the actual numbers. It's important to us. We want us to have good fire coverage. We want good pressure. I know the system's not designed to push some of the water flows that we have from automated sprinkler systems. If everybody in the house around here ran fan sprinklers, little lawn sprinklers, they put out about 2 gallons a minute. We could run it all day long. But when you run a automated sprinkler system, it can take up to 20 gallons a minute. So the piping will not support that for more than a few hundred homes at a time. Matt has graciously stepped up and asked, my questions and what we can do. And in that space, he spent time with me at LUB, both on Zoom calls and going up there and trying to figure out what all they got. Not only in the water space, but the wastewater space. The board's seen their proposal that they've given to us that we need to discuss on a separate issue. But I believe that working with our partners and connecting LUB, Barge, which is their engineer that's doing their current model, and Jacobs, better eliminate all the questions. And it will to me, irregardless of what the answer comes back.
Mike, in your comments, when you say they, you were talking about LUB and LUB's engineering and LUB's model. That's a question to make sure I'm understanding you correctly.
Both models.
Yeah, but you're getting access to LUB's model.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. And from my perspective, I really, PSAC believed getting answers to these questions was important. I think it helped to bring closure to some of the open lingering items. I think the other thing that folks have to keep in mind here, as history has been explained to me and as I understand it, is we, the POA, started with basically a directive that at that point in time, management wasn't going to entertain an elevated water storage tank. The board at that point in time then also, or in the same time period, entered into a new contract with LUB, because basically the previous contract was expiring and we needed to secure a water supply for the main part of the village that made sense. The underlying assumption, and Steve and Marty can comment on this because they've been on the board longer than anybody else, is that after that contract was entered into with LUB, that there would still be the need from a pressure standpoint to implement 5 or 6 booster pump stations. And it was in, I think, July of 2023 when POA management then came back to the board and said, we got a better solution than the booster pump stations. It's an elevated water tank. And so the comparison point was the elevated water tank against the assumption of booster pump stations that were going to be needed to meet the pressure requirements. So I think that perspective needs to be kept in mind. I think this is the right answer. I guess the other thing I would mention is Matt is being, correct me if I'm wrong, Matt, cautious here, because it very well may be that we have sufficient money in the existing authorization to cover this, but in case the design money is all needed to complete the design, he wanted to go ahead and identify this up front as an authorized expenditure so he wouldn't fall short at the end of the project if all the design money is spent to complete the elevated water tank approach.
Correct.
And where I stand, I guess, is I agree the water model needs to be updated with all the current information. So that part of it absolutely needs to be done. I don't believe water restrictions will have enough of an impact since it's all voluntary. There's no way to enforce it. And I don't necessarily like spending money to answer endless questions, especially when they're not coming from, say, PSAC. But again, as a line in the sand, I'm willing to agree with this expenditure, and that is the line in the sand. We're done as far as going back and forth. This should provide the answer on elevated storage.
I'm all for it as long as they answer the questions that Matt's put forth to them.
Here's the qualifier.
If they don't answer the questions, then we shouldn't even pay the bill. The basis is we've asked for these questions to be answered, no different than you would ask for a bottle of whiskey to be delivered to the yacht club. And if the questions aren't answered, right or wrong, and they include the right flows, I have no problem with it. It's an opportunity to save a lot of money and with very little at risk all in all.
I mean, I agree with both Mike and John's comments that this is, I don't like spending the money, but this has been debate going on for years. I remember sitting in the audience over there when they talked about the pump station, didn't want to put a raised water tower. It's time to get these questions answered and move forward. While we have residents that have low water pressure today, we've got to find a solution. So I'll be for voting for this $40,000.
Okay, I think we've heard from everybody. I guess now it's time to vote. All those in favor of this expenditure? Okay, so that's what, 5-2? Is that it?
I am so done.
It's not 5 o'clock yet. The only other thing on our agenda is there any liaison reports worth noting from any meetings you've all been in?
The only major item I can talk about is as we talked before, the courses have been re-rated. New handicaps have been established by hole on each course for men and women's. There are new cards for the courses yet to be put out as of earlier this week or last week. I saw the women's card for, I think it was Tanasi. So as soon as those cards are in, the expectation is all the handicaps will be updated on the cards and they'll be out there on the racks for you to be using.
Hey, that brings up a question I have for Wells, since he happens to be sitting there. We were playing golf the other day and noticed those little pads that are out there. It looks like for maybe juniors to tee off, further down the fairway. And then we talk about this someday 9-hole course. Could we not build out those little tee boxes and have a 9-hole course as part of our bigger course?
I think the problem, and
Or not a 9-hole course, but a par 3 course.
A par 3 course. So, yes and no. The problem with that, and we discovered it when we rolled it out the first time, is people showed up, wanted to play the par 3 course, or trying to play a par 3 course within 18-hole tee times. So it doesn't work. Now, if we wanted to close the course and make it a par 3 course, you could do that for the day, but from a revenue standpoint, you can't charge full rack rate for a par 3 course.
Yeah, I was thinking, I guess that's true.
And it's worked out great for,
Well,
you can, you're just going to wait a lot and maybe upset some people, but I mean, it's worked out great for, we've had some cart path only days in the winter when no one's on the course and some guys want to come out and play a quick 9 and they can, it's right by the cart path or close to it. We've had some other league events from there, but it's not very regular at this point. They didn't cost us anything to make. They're left over. But yeah, it's just tough to have an existing par 3 course going on within 18-hole tee times.
Yeah, unless you did a time where it was all par 3, and you could have much shorter tee time spacing, but because they're going to play faster.
Theoretically, yeah.
But you'd have to be able to fill the tee schedule with par 3s.
Right.
Okay, just a thought.
All right, that was easy. Thanks.
Okay, I think that's it. Adjourn the meeting. Thanks for everybody.